Thank you, everyone, and solidarity to all of you. Well, it's been quite a week. 3 regional councils, from Montreal to Whistler to Toronto, which is why I have 10 pounds of foundation on right now. 5 workplace tours, meetings with local leaders, activists, and members, pushing the envelope both politically and at the bargaining table, and winning for workers everywhere, including in the courts and in the streets. Unifor is on fire right now. And to top off the week, the very, very talented pastry chef at the Hotel Vancouver, one of our members who we got to meet this week and chat with, gifted me with the best darn, oh my God, chocolate cake. And I have to tell you, it was really, really hard to share that cake. But I did. In all seriousness, I am really happy to be here with all of you. Len, Daniel, and I believe it is important that our members get to meet and connect with the top officers of the union. That visiting our members in their workplaces, listening to them, getting to know them, is part of building a connected and responsive union into the future. And I have to say, it's been truly great to be out there with all of you. So thank you to the locals who've reached out and invited us into their homes. I also want to express our solidarity with Unifor members fighting for economic justice right now on picket lines in Ontario and Quebec. In the last week, we had 2 new disputes in the union. You heard about the 90 food services workers here in Ontario, members of 462 this morning. And also, we have 230 members of Local 530 and 27Q, packaging workers in Quebec, who are on strike for a pattern agreement in the forestry sector. They joined 70 other forestry and telco members with 2 Quebec employers who are currently on picket lines. This brings the total number of disputes in our union so far this year to 30. Breaking last year's record of 21. We are keeping the staff very busy in Unifor. But what this tells us is that workers and our members are fighting back everywhere, all across the UK and the United States, and all across our union. They are doing it with courage, and yes, with a renewed sense of the value of the work that they do. Always remember, my friends, this country does not move or work without us. Without us. I know you'll hear from Len, I think, tomorrow, and I'm sure he will report to you with modesty and thoughtful determination, because that's who he is. But let me tell you what a complete joy and honor it is to get to work with this straight-talking brother. He is someone who deeply believes in this union and all its glorious possibilities, the finest of trade unionists, and someone whose solid advice and friendship I've grown to count on this past year. He serves our union and our members with great strength and trustworthiness. Thank you, Len, for everything you do and for what you bring to our union. I'm so very honored to get to do this work for our members with him and Daniel, our new Quebec director, who's joined us here this weekend, with some of his key staff, which shows how our union is going to be going forward. And of course, with Noreen and Gavin and Jen, a tremendous elected leadership team. We all get to do this great work on your behalf. And it's an honor for all of us to do so. I also want to recognize our National Executive Board and, of course, the executive and standing committees of the Ontario Regional Council for your work these past 3 years. Very challenging years, including our brother Tulio, who will be stepping down from the ORC executive. Thank you, Tulio, for your very, very good work on behalf of Ontario members and for leaving that amazing bank balance for your successor. There are also many, many staff here in the room who work day in and day out for you, our members. I want to acknowledge and thank them for all that they do. They help make this union a great force in the province of Ontario and all across our country. And to all of you, dedicated local union leaders and activists who are the heart and soul of Unifor, thank you for your support and solidarity and for your dedicated activism and for doing the very hard work of representing our members and defending our union. I know it's tough out there now. There is a mood of discontent and anxiety everywhere. The world is going through troubling times. And this means our members need their union more than ever. And I know that means you are all doing more. So thank you for being there on the front lines for working people and for making a difference in their lives every single day. Friends, as you know, a pandemic still grips most of the planet. People are still dying from this virus, including here at home in Canada. Our healthcare members are still battling this every single day at work. Many are tired and worn out, and yet they persist in doing everything they can to deliver the very best of care to Canadians. Thank you, sisters and brothers. We have high inflation, rapidly rising interest rates, skyrocketing profits, economic uncertainty, war. The world around us, it seems, will never be the same. But then, we want it to be better than it was before the pandemic. Because for too many people in this country, that normal, including members of our own union, was just not good enough. But this is what I do know about all of you. No matter the challenges, no matter the difficulties, we will always have our solidarity and our union and our trade union principles to guide us through. We will have the strong foundation of trade unionism built by our retirees, who continue to be a driving force within Unifor. And I thank them for their continued activism and leadership. It's been over 3 months since our Constitutional Convention, and I can tell you there has been a lot happening in our great union. I don't know where to start, but I'm going to give it a try. 2 weeks ago, Lana, Daniel, Noreen, Gavin, and Jen joined me and our entire National Executive Board, senior staff, and a few other sector leaders in Ottawa for a National Lobby Week. We started the week with a bit of a bang. During a press conference given at the House of Commons Press Gallery, I said, live on TV, because if you want to create a stir in this world, you do it live on TV, because they can't edit anything out then. I said that the Bank of Canada was waging class war, one that was hurting and would continue to hurt working people in this country. The Member of Parliament for Hamilton Centre, Matthew Green, who was standing behind me, was a little surprised, pleasantly so, I think. And I know these were strong words, but they needed saying, because what is happening is a class war. And we must never, never shy away from speaking the truth when the livelihoods and jobs and rights of our members are at stake. We are facing a crisis as a country. Many Canadians are struggling to afford day-to-day life, and the Bank of Canada continues to hike interest rates, threatening the jobs that our members and working people rely on to afford an already expensive life in this country. Let me be very clear right now. Unifor will continue to use our voice and our power to defend our members against bad decisions no matter where they're made, including those made in the ivory towers by central bankers. I made these comments after the Governor of the Bank of Canada advised employers in Canada not to raise wages, so they became a permanent response to inflation. Yep, telling them not to worry, he had their backs. Yeah, the Governor of the Bank of Canada, financial advisor to the bosses. Then Tiff Macklem went a step further. He said the solution to inflation is higher unemployment. Shame. Wielding interest rates as the sledgehammer to send the country into a recession. A recession where workers pay the price with the loss of their jobs. Now, to also be clear, Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Federal Conservative Party, he may be talking about inflation too, but he has his economics all wrong. And his solutions would leave people in Canada worse off. He wants us to believe that inflation has been caused by government spending, much of which was used to help Canadians during the crisis of the pandemic. So what exactly would he have done? Left Canadians to fend for themselves during the worst of times? What is he saying about skyrocketing corporate profits? Not a peep. Absolutely nothing. What is he saying about strengthening collective bargaining rights in Canada? Not a peep. Absolutely nothing. Indeed, check out his record on union and worker rights. He is no friend of the working class. Look around. Inflation is being caused by many things. Government spending is not one of them. Workers' wages are not one of them. Broken supply chains, a war in Ukraine, corporate gouging, take your pick. Take all of them. The Bank of Canada needs to understand it is not acceptable to throw people out of work to meet some arbitrary inflation target. And make no mistake, our union will not sit on the sidelines while working people are thrown to the wolves. We will not stand by while bankers and oil companies and grocery barons rake in obscene profits, fueling the inflation we're all dealing with every day. We will not accept that one of the biggest grocery store chains raked in $560 million in profits in 16 weeks, while their workers are earning some of the lowest wages in the country, including having had their pandemic pay slashed months into this crisis. We do not accept We do not accept that corporate profits as a share of GDP are up 66% this year compared to the same period last year. That they are at a historic high, a full 24% of GDP in the second quarter of 2022, and 20% of GDP averaged last year and this year. Prior to the pandemic, the highest corporate profits ever were as a share of GDP, 15%. Now 20, and rising every quarter. It has gone too far. Imagine a full fifth or a full quarter of our entire economy going to pad the corporate bottom line. It is not sustainable. It is not sustainable. And we do not accept any of this. And it's why we are fighting hard at every single bargaining table, whether it's 15 workers or 70 workers or 3,000 workers, every single bargaining table. Because workers all across our union are being courageous right now and fighting back. Like the GDI cleaners from Local 222, who went on strike for 17 days, winning a historic agreement with a 33% wage increase over the term of their contract. Like the warehouse workers from Local 414, who bargained an immediate increase of $4.65 an hour. Casino workers, logistics workers, manufacturing workers, transport workers, they are all fighting back right now. And as a union, we're not going to allow this moment to go without doing everything we can to make permanent gains for working people. As I mentioned, we spent a week in Ottawa in November, meeting with ministers and members of parliament from all parties, because we have to meet MPs from all parties. We can't just talk to the people who agree with us. We have to talk to people who don't and convince them to our way of thinking. As you know, the federal government is currently preparing its next budget, so the timing of our visit to Ottawa was key. And since we know that budgets are truly expressions of political priorities, we were all over them, making the case for important funding and investments that would help working people across this country, including, of course, Unifor members. We talked again about the need for permanent reforms to Canada's unemployment insurance system. You know I still call it unemployment insurance system. That's how old I am. We called on the government to expand eligibility and improve benefits. And we're going to keep doing that until the job is done. It's dry up here. How'd you manage this morning, Noreen?
Feel the lights?
Yeah, it's warm. I can't leave on my jacket, though. And just last week, you probably heard, I think it was Friday, the minister responsible for employment insurance announced improved sick leave benefits, something that we as a union have been fighting for a very long time as part of an overall reform required to fix this program. It's the workers' program. Now, there's still a lot of work to do, but we can take this victory because we fought for it. You all fought for it, including your EI committee. We also demanded anti-scab laws to strengthen collective bargaining and union rights. Friends, we will finally have an anti-scab law at the federal level. We did that. Workers on picket lines over decades did that. And it is a reminder why we never, ever give up. We keep fighting until we win. And with this law, we will send a message to the entire country and to every single employer out there, including Bell Canada. Including Bell Canada. You do not get to ever again send letters to our members telling them to bust their own union. Never again. Never again. We all know in this room using scabs is wrong, and we're just not going to tolerate it anymore. Not today. You know what's next? Not tomorrow. Not ever. But we can't stop. We can't stop organizing until the job is done and the law is on the books. So we got a little bit of more work to do. We also talked about how government must implement a dedicated just transition fund to support workers in all sectors of the economy, not only the energy sector. We are and will be facing major economic transformations in the coming decades, and we want to be part of the plan to build an economy for all of us. Building that new transformed economy, if done right, will mean more jobs, not fewer jobs, more. Because we can build the buses and transit that we need right here in Canada. We can transform and decarbonize our workplaces. We can build an economy with good jobs at the core. It is merely about planning and political will. And finally, we talked about the current affordability crisis. We reminded government that bringing in national promised programs such as pharmacare and dental care would provide relief and help working class families. We reminded the government that pandemic profiteering must stop, and they can do something about it. After all, they are the government, and they have power. They can expand the excess profit tax and redistribute the funds to low and middle income Canadians as a start. Since my election, I've spoken a few times with the Prime Minister. I think we're hoping to meet in the coming weeks or the new year. And I can tell you he's listening hard. And the reason he's listening is because he knows the power of our union comes from all of you. 315,000 workers across more than 20 sectors of the economy from every province in this country. Thousands and thousands of trade union activists who do not know the meaning of the word quit. Understand, Unifor has political power because of you. And this I know. With every conversation with a politician, an employer, a decision maker, it's a reminder that we must be forever vigilant. Because complacency is for those content with the status quo, and that is not who we are. We do not want the status quo. We want a better world for everyone. We're on the eve, as you know right now, Noreen mentioned this in her speech this morning, of December 6th. I'll be spending the day with our sisters and brothers at 1285. Thank you for the invite. It's the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women. 33 years ago, women, mostly engineering students, at the Polytech University campus, I know I just said that wrong, Help me out, folks. Were targeted in an act of hatred. Marking December 6th every year reminds us that violence against women is not confined to a single event in the past. It is too often part of daily life for far too many women in our country, especially our Indigenous sisters. As trade unionists, fighting for equality starts with fighting for economic and social justice for women everywhere we can, at the bargaining table, in politics, in the workplace, and in our communities. I will always mark December 6th. For me, it's a day that I will never forget. As a young journalist, it was a day that changed everything. It changed me profoundly. It changed how we talked about violence against women in this country. It broke the silence. Today, my daughter is studying engineering, and I want the world to be a better place for her and all young women. And friends, we're not there yet. But as a union, a powerful union, we can do something about this. We can use the power we have at collective bargaining tables to demand equality and respect for our sisters. We can continue to fight for all the things that make our world fairer and more equal. I want to spend a little time looking at some of the sectors and what's happening across some of the sectors in Ontario where our members are working, where you're working. I'm going to come back on Bill 28 in a few minutes, but I want to start with talking a little about 124. Don't ever let them tell you that it can't be done. Not ever. We knew from the start that the law wouldn't pass the test. And like every bad law, it could not go unchallenged. I want to thank Noreen for all of her work, fighting with our members and our staff against this egregious, sexist piece of legislation. I also want to thank 3 Unifor sisters who agreed to be the face of this court challenge: Kelly Godric, Sarah Branzana, and Kathleen Elkins. Yeah. Our lawyers worked with them to prepare detailed affidavits. It took dozens and dozens of hours. They also agreed, these brave sisters, that if needed, to be cross-examined by government lawyers. I want to thank them because their evidence made a difference. The decision contains a moving summary of the evidence from one of our members, and it's clear all of this evidence informed the judge's thinking. Incredible work. And I want them to know we are going to keep fighting all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada, as the Premier has decided to delay justice once again by appealing the court decision. Yeah. We fought the law. You fought the law. That is correct. Are you reading my speech now? What's going on here? But we're not going to give up, because you all know this. When we fight, we win. There's tons to celebrate right now, outside of the bumpy challenges we've had, but there's tons to celebrate in the auto sector in the past 2 years. $16 billion in investments, including towards new vehicle assembly programs, battery production, and battery material production. We can expect more to come, and we're going to fight for more, because we're never done protecting jobs, and preserving skills. This year, next year, the Big Three bargaining is the next way station for the union to bolster collective agreements, improve wages and benefits and pensions, as our retiree brother just spoke about, and deal with all of this before these big transitions happen. There will be another milestone moment for Canada and our union on Monday, and I'm really looking forward to joining Local 88 in Ingersoll to mark that. In the auto parts sector of our union, there is a newfound militancy among Unifor members, with workers over the past year fighting hard for improved wages and working conditions across the province. But there's also major challenges in the sector too. We know that many workers are vulnerable to the EV transition. We saw a wave of Unifor members in nearby plant facilities laid off as a result of the EV transition at CAMI. The announced closure of Syncreon in Windsor was another blow to nearly 300 Unifor members. And now Lorraine Sinclair's plant, the sudden closure of Adient in Tillsonburg, affecting 200 members, the latest hit. Make no mistake, though, we will continue to call on government to put more energy and attention on the parts sector in this EV shift, as they are doing with assembly right now and critical minerals. We're going to fight for every nickel of investment and every single job across the EV supply chain. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for working people, and we're not going to let it pass us by. Our challenge will be to make sure that the thousands of workers who will take part in these new ventures understand that Unifor is their go-to union, the strongest, most capable, and dedicated union to fight for them and to deliver results. The work to meet that challenge starts right now. We will be planning an organizing strategy for the auto and transit industry of the future. And I know you would be more than happy to expand basic workplace rights and ensure more workers have access to a union, our union. Friends, how long are we expected to watch our healthcare system dive deeper into crisis? Until governments feel the pressure to actually take action. How long? Hospitals have had to close emergency rooms throughout the year because of staffing shortages and capacity issues. Sick kids, sick children have waited 50 hours in emergency rooms before they could get care. What is going on here? The staffing crisis is severe in all parts of the system. Meanwhile, for-profit, temporary staffing agencies continue to expand, thanks to your tax dollars. There's a huge backlog for surgeries and other medical treatments. Long-term care homes, as many of you know in this room, continue to struggle to recruit and retain staff. And the government's solution? Move more care into for-profit facilities. It's not about the money, as Noreen said this morning. The government is starving the system to justify more privatization and more for-profit care. Friends, this is going to be the fight of our lives. For over 70 years, we have been building a national public health care system in Canada. And for much of that time, we've had to defend it from the profiteers. And now is not the time to allow them to win. We're gearing up, as you probably know, for the next cycle of major supermarket bargaining across Ontario, starting with GTA Metro stores in the summer of 2023. 3,500 members. Supermarket companies are reaping the benefits of high inflation and high prices, including Metro. who recorded, listen to this, a mind-blowing net profit of nearly $1 billion for this year. And we're not even finished this year, thanks to massive growth in sales revenue. In other words, what you're paying for your groceries. It's going to be quite a challenging set of negotiations, but I know that 414 is more than up to the task. We're also going to push against the federal government's attempt to privatize via rail, the most profitable portion of the rail system. With our campaign that will be getting more and more into high gear in 2023, calling Get Canada Back on Track. As our Secretary-Treasurer Len says so well, we are not going to be the generation that loses the most sustainable way to move goods and people. We are not. We will fight for national public passenger rail services and move the next generation of workers and passengers forward. That is our commitment to our railway members. Federally, the government is also positioning itself right now as a champion of the aerospace industry. It's about time. As a union, we will be there every step of the way, standing up for our Unifor aerospace workers, because we know we have generations of history in this sector, and we must fight for the next generation of aerospace workers. We continue to support and lobby for two important pieces of legislation in the media sector, so that we regulate the foreign digital giants that have come to dominate the media landscape in Canada. And doing this will help us save local news once and for all. The last few years, as you heard this morning, wonderful panel, by the way, Noreen, incredible, yeah. We've seen a huge increase, as you heard, in harassment and abuse of journalists and media workers, both online and in person. So take up the challenge that the sister spoke to you about this morning. Support journalism. Support our media members wherever and however you can. In addition, over the past 2 months, there was a battle between the owners of Tourstar over the future of the company. These, again, were uncertain times for our members. And we played an important role. Carlene, excellent work. Jim, in our local, Jim Rankin, excellent work. Making sure that the interests of our members were protected. And making sure that our members knew that their union was with them. Ontario will invest, I don't know, tens of billions of dollars in public transit and transportation over the next 2 decades or so. Doug Ford has used the Alstrom facility in Thunder Bay as a point of pride for Ontario. And yet, he's refused to commit to the Canadian content needed to ensure work is awarded to workers in Canada and at our Thunder Bay facility. And that is not good enough. National chemical and energy pattern bargaining will get started next month, this month. This is the last month of the year. Thank you, Dan, you're nodding, I got it right, okay. What, I'm still in November. And yeah, I know. And we know that in addition to a strong economic agreement, pattern agreement, that bargaining just transition language will be atop our agenda. And I know that our energy locals are going to get this job done. Yesterday was a big day for working people in Canada. Almost 3 full years into a global pandemic, and we finally have 10 days of paid medical leave for about 1 million workers in federally regulated sectors. Unifor, with many others, played a critical role in this fight. My thanks to Jen Murray, who represented us in Ottawa yesterday at a news conference with the minister. We didn't really tell her that she had to speak and do all kinds of things. So, she did what we all do. She flew by the seat of her pants, and she did great. But this is another example of seizing a moment, of never giving up until we win. And now we have to fight for paid sick days in every jurisdiction in the country and get this job finished. So all of this brings me to talk about what happened, the fun Noreen and I have been having in Ontario a couple of weeks ago. In June, as you all know, Doug Ford secured a whopping second majority mandate. Yeah, I know. Not by people in this room, I get it. So, a couple of weeks ago, in the context of what was normal bargaining for education workers, as you know, CUPE members, employed by the province's school boards, like some of Tulio's members, the government did something nobody expected. It brought out the heaviest of hammers. Think sledgehammer and multiply it by, 10,000. A special law that not only imposed a contract, but made use of this infamous notwithstanding clause to remove the right to strike and to collective bargaining. Yes. The law also included fines, very large fines, designed to do one thing: to crush the union and the education workers. A move that we knew, by the way, would be used again and again to deny workers their rights in other provinces, and yes, in the private sector too, if it was allowed to stand. And we knew we could not allow it to stand. The moment they introduced this unprecedented attack was the moment we stopped everything. What followed was the closest we ever came to a true province-wide tools down moment. This close. We began planning a general strike. And Noreen will tell you, in discussions with the other unions, we were very clear. We were very clear. Unifor was all in. All of us together. And I want to be clear about this. We did not just talk or hope for a general strike, because I know there's some of you out there in the audience saying we should have had the general strike. We made it real, because this unprecedented attack against trade union freedoms had to be met with an unprecedented response. There have been many articles written about how I made a few phone calls to the government, to ministers, to Ford's people, who I calmly explained multiple times that they did not know what was coming at them. It's true, I did make those calls. People who know me also know I like to text. So I sent some of those too. And my texts are kind of legendary. I am a former journalist, so I can write a lot very, very quickly. So there were many texts, there were many phone calls, until people came together to figure this out. But I want to tell you something. A few texts and a few calls do not a general strike make. What makes a general strike is our union's National Executive Board meeting for the first time since convention, hearing about this situation, and without a second's thought, deciding unanimously to support the call for a general strike in the province of Ontario. What makes a general strike is our elected auto and IPS council, representing 40,000 major manufacturing workers, coming together to write a letter to the Premier to tell him that they were prepared to take any and all actions to resist Bill 28, including work stoppages that would result in a massive economic impact on the province. What makes a general strike is rumors that our friends in Quebec were ready to hop onto buses to come help us shut down Toronto. Daniel was ready. We were all ready. What makes a general strike is workers all across this province talking to their family members, to their co-workers, calling their members of government, and pledging that nothing would move in this province until this law was off the table. The Ontario government thought that they could get away with it. That's what they thought. And within days, we reminded them that without our brain and muscle, not a single wheel can turn. Four days after it adopted Bill 28, the Ford government committed to writing to rescind it in its entirety. 1 week later, the legislature adopted Bill 35, which said, the Keeping Students in Class Act 2022 is repealed, and this is the important part, and is deemed, for all purposes, never to have been in force. Friends, I will remind you always of this. When we come together, when we organize, there is absolutely no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. At convention, as you know, we made a number of commitments, and I want to take this opportunity to update you on some of those things. We have, as you know, appointed a new senior leadership team and assigned important files of the union to talented, experienced, and trustworthy members of our staff. We have developed a post-convention action plan that will ensure all the resolutions and constitutional amendments made at convention are acted upon and completed promptly. We struck a task force on accountability and invited the help of an independent outside chair to guide this work towards enhanced accountability and transparency measures in the union's policies, practices, and structures, and to help us define the position of an integrity officer that we will create. We have begun to review Unifor's founding principles and objectives as a part of how we will mark our 10th anniversary next year and celebrate this great union with all of you. We have discussed with our National Executive Board the launch of a new equity fund for local unions and are currently putting in place the criteria and application process so that you can access national funds to run local equity campaigns. We started planning a national bargaining conference, and I know that this is a priority for the retirees, so listen up. And you're going to soon hear a lot more about this as we will be doing regional meetings and initiatives across the country and talking to all of our locals. And we will then tie all of that to a conference at Canada Council in August of next year. We've met with the Canadian Labour Congress, and we will begin now consulting with our locals and our regional councils about re-engaging with the CLC. We are soon publishing an updated financial report available to all members on our website. We are currently reviewing Unifor's education courses in the hopes of making clear recommendations for improving our learning opportunities inside and outside the classroom. We have put in place a team to launch community-based organizing projects in communities where unions are so much needed. We have and are evaluating and reviewing our servicing levels across the country, and we will continue to do so. Our union is changing, and that means our members will continue to need and require our support. We said that we also have so much to do right now, and we meant it. We're only just getting started. We're only just getting started. We have so much to do because this world does not work for us. This country, this province is nowhere near where it needs to be to support workers and their families. As a modern social union, we want all working people to live in good conditions, to make a decent living, enjoy a nice life at work and at home. We have so much to do because we are still building this great union. We are building this country for everyone and with everyone. I stand here today in recognition and appreciation of your work. I hope you're proud of your union, because I'm incredibly proud of all of the work that you do to build Unifor. On this note, I wish you a safe and warm end of the year, and I can't wait to see what you all have in store for our union in 2023. Because one thing is for certain, together we are stronger, so much stronger. And we can do so much for our members and for workers everywhere. And I promise you this, together we will. Solidarity, sisters and brothers.